What's up Internet, IG here again. Today we're having a look at openSUSE 12.3, so let's do it. So what's changed in the 8 months since openSUSE's last release? Obviously back in September they were talking about a restructuring of their foundation and also the company that was supporting them. Now fast forward 8 months later and they're on track with their 12.3 release. So here we are inside openSUSE 12.3, the KDE desktop. Now of course it's running the latest stable software, so KDE 4.10 comes as your stock standard. Now I haven't actually had a look at KDE 4.10. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to do a video on the features and improvements of KDE 4.10. But for the meantime, we're just going to stick to basically what openSUSE has to offer, as opposed to the specific desktop environments. The one thing that is specific to openSUSE this time around is the theming. openSUSE have always been very consistent with their theming, from the bootloader to the grub screen to the boot screen, splash screen, and login screen, and then finally the desktop. It looks very consistent all the way through, and that's certainly the case here in openSUSE 12.3. Even the applications themselves, like LibreOffice Writer and GIMP, for example, they all have their own customized splash screens that make it very, very impressive and very professional. And I've said it before in many other videos that openSUSE really presents itself as a very professional distribution. They do deserve a major pat on the back. Now what else has changed since the last release? Well, apart from updated packages, there's not a whole lot here that is brand spanking new. One thing that I did appreciate was the fact that they made it a little bit easier to find and therefore use their Appa software management, which is essentially a KDE tool that's developed to manage your software. Looks a lot like the Ubuntu Software Center from around the 10.04 cycle. So having said that, it still looks a bit old. It's functional and it does get the job done. One complaint that I do have though is if you do enter a search term, let's say for instance Yuckquake, it will give you, depending on whether you have installed the software or not, I've often found that it gives you two results. I'm not really sure why that is, and for some reason it's not actually happening this time around, but it will sometimes give you two identical results and it makes it very difficult to distinguish what the difference is and therefore which one you should install. But having said that, as you can see here, you get a short description, the license, the download size, and a quick screenshot here. So it does give you the necessary amount of information before you go and install packages. Now of course the tools that are very specific to openSUSE is of course YAST. And if you've never used openSUSE before, then you're definitely going to realize that YAST is probably one of its major draw cards. So for people that want to manage their system from one central location across every single element of their system without getting messy in the terminal, then YAST is the perfect tool. There's just a lot of great options in here, and with the filtered search you can be on your way to configuring what you want when you need it very, very quickly. These tools work, and they also work not just from the GUI side, but if you are for some reason stuck in a terminal, you can launch a terminal or ncursors interface, which will then allow you the same configuration options even if you can't get the graphics drivers running. Very, very useful, and I have used them on a number of occasions, sometimes in the past when my graphics card would act up. So overall impressions of openSUSE is that yes, it's very fast. KDE 4.10 brings that to the table, and along with fantastic system scheduling on the part of the openSUSE kernel tweaks, and also I do really appreciate the work that they put into the power saving mode of openSUSE, because I found that as a general rule, you can generally get more battery life out of openSUSE than most other distributions. Why is that? I'm not entirely sure, but just even the options that it gives you, say when you unplug your battery, are much more intelligent than the defaults that you'll find on Ubuntu or something like that. Now when it comes to pre-installed software, it really depends on what medium you choose to install. If you choose the live disks, which are about 1 gig each, then you'll get a pretty standard selection of applications and software. Of course the installer itself is very, very nice, and you can configure every element of the installation, including what software you want to pre-install and all of that fun stuff. So for me, for this install, I installed the KDE desktop, and I also installed the LXDE desktop just as a lightweight alternative. But to be honest, KDE is getting so fast on this hardware nowadays, there's no real need to have it as a lightweight desktop environment, especially on modern hardware. Now of course if you download the full 4.7 gig DVD, then you're going to get all the open source software you could possibly want, including meta packages that are available for all kinds of different software development. And as you can see here, I'm opening up the YAST version of the software manager, which I find much more helpful than the Appa, even though Appa technically does look a bit more user friendly. But again, search term and you will find the software that you're looking for. Now, another thing to mention here is the RPM groups. Because of the fact that you might not exactly know what sort of software you want to install, if you come in here to RPM groups, you can see all the different groups of applications, including development libraries, tools, hardware drivers, editors, multimedia, you name it, all grouped into what these pieces of software do. So if you are looking for a specific software need, then this is very powerful. Again, not the most user-friendly, and it does look a little bit outdated, but it's very, very functional and it gives you a lot of options. The other fantastic thing about the openSUSE project is their documentation. Their documentation and their help that is available to new users and to developers alike is almost unparalleled as far as a distribution that is not a bleeding edge distribution like Arch or Gentoo. They have some great services and tools available to both developers and users through their build service and through their rolling release known as Tumbleweed, and also their operating system building tool known as SUSE Studio. I have explained what those do in other openSUSE videos, so you can have a look at my previous videos. I'll put some links in the description, and also you can check out the links on their website. You can search for the openSUSE's projects. So to summarize, openSUSE's KDE release has always been a hallmark of the KDE desktop. They always bring the latest fit and polish to the KDE desktop, and for the other desktops they usually leave them fairly vanilla. With the YAS configuration manager and the fantastic kernel tweaks and run level settings that they preload into the distribution, you can really tweak some great performance out of openSUSE. And I will also say that this distribution has been very stable. I haven't had any entire plasma crashes, or any system level crashes for that matter. And the performance has been well on average, if not slightly above. So why would you want to install this distribution? First of all, openSUSE and its project derivatives have great services available. Whether you are a slightly more advanced Linux user or a Linux developer, there is some great options here to play around with, not just SUSE itself, but with the services that it provides, like the build service, SUSE Studio, and the Tumbleweed project. The number one reason that I would use openSUSE as an end user would be to have more control over my system, to be able to tweak it out a bit more, but without getting down and dirty in the terminal. So openSUSE is very polished, it performs well, and it's very professional. Obviously openSUSE has held a very dear place in my heart since it was one of my first Linux distributions around the 11.2 release phase, and it's obviously evolved and kept progressing at a very decent rate ever since. But I want to know from you guys, what do you think is the target audience of openSUSE? They kind of don't really specify a specific audience. They just say it's for anybody and everybody. So let me know in the comments below, and also feel free to follow me on Twitter, Google+, and Facebook. You can find links of those in the description below. Also links for openSUSE and the major documentational sites that you might want to check out before installing it. Of course, keep the suggestions coming for either operating systems or games that you want me to check out. Thanks all again for watching and hitting that like button. It does help out the channel a lot. Subscribe if you like this content on a regular basis, and I shall see you all in the very near future. Peace out, ladies and gentlemen.